Hello, my name is Matt. Welcome to Unbearable 73. On this episode, we will explore the first news for the upcoming Sandman TV show. So first, let me pull an article up on the screen for you guys if it's not there already. There it is. Okay. This is an article from Movieweb. I'll have the link to it down below. It's the first news I've seen of this show. I knew Gaiman was working on the project, kind of, but I hadn't heard that it had gone as far as it did, which is post-production. So let me go over some history of the Sandman first so you understand what we're talking about if you haven't never read the comic before. So what is the Sandman? The Sandman began back in the 1970s. DC began publishing a comic series for several years called The Sandman, written by Joe Simon and Michael Fleischer, drawn by Jack Kirby and Amy Chua. Neil Gaiman in the 1980s became interested in those characters. He wanted those characters to make an appearance in his 1988 series Black Orchid, which is a good miniseries, by the way. This was barred by DC because Roy Thomas was using some of those characters in Infinity Inc. This was back before the modern era when comic companies protected their characters, understood the value of continuity and the avoidance of overexposure. I mean, nowadays, character will reappear in like 17 books per month if Marvel can get away with it, and examples like that. Gaiman retained his interest in the characters and continued to develop a treatment of them which DC editor Karen Berger, head of the Vertigo line of comics, liked. Vertigo Comics was DC's sort of mature audiences line back in the day. The only caveat, however, was that Gaiman had to make a new character to be the Sandman. In other words, you can use the concept, but he had to change who was the Sandman, the character. After several appearances in other DC properties, including Swamp Thing and Hellblazer, two other Vertigo books, Neil Gaiman's The Sandman debuted in 1989. This is the birth of what many consider to be the greatest comic book series of all time. Okay. Gaiman created a whole meta section of the DC Omniverse, but dramatically expanding upon several concepts used in prior incarnations of the Sandman, including the Dream Stream, and also tied many of those different takes on the Sandman together. The titular Sandman is Dream, one of the seven beings or embodiments of the Endless. The Endless are core concepts that underlie all of existence and all of the DC multiverses and omniverse. These concepts are different from those represented by Jack Kirby's The Fourth World. The concepts of the Endless are outside all realities and universes and underlie all of them. The Fourth World is an integral part of the DC multiverse, and its concepts are only integral to that multiverse. So, for example, one of the Endless is death, and one of the core concepts of everything is everything dies, whereas not every DC universe, so to speak, does death exist. Death always exists, but I messed this up. Death always exists, but in a different universe, it's handled differently. So so in some cases, the beings who are eternal will die with the end of the universe. Yeah. That's what I kind of meant with that. Like the Time Trapper, for example. Gaiman himself is a comic book purist who doesn't like destroying established continuity events solely to create more into his own writing, which a lot of comic artists now tend to do, just traipse all over what they've done in the past. He loves Jack Kirby's work as well as the work done by many other comic creators, so his creation of the Endless and other stuff outside of all realities like Lucifer and Death and so on was done not only to express his artistic drive, but to make the whole of what he was reading and enjoying greater. Following the short general maybe not so short, general summary of the internal meta concept in Sandman, which will be useful in evaluation of the forthcoming TV show. There are currently 7 beings known as the Endless. The Endless are the physical manifestations of 7 abstract concepts that underlie all realities. The current 7 Endless are destiny, dream, death, delirium, desire, destruction, and despair. They all start with a D. It's important to note that while the embodiment as a manifestation will always exist, at least for some of the Endless, that being in whom they manifest can change. It's also important to know that each of the Endless can manifest as multiple beings at the same time. Remember that for later. The titular Sandman is Dream of the Endless. He controls a realm known as the Dreaming, where he is almost infinitely powerful. There are some beings who are even more powerful than the Endless, however, by the way. Dream has minions who inhabit this realm, and whenever anyone or anything dreams, they're manifesting in the Dreaming. Now, because this is going to cause conniption to fans later, I need to go over one other character that came in revamped for the Sandman. Okay? That character is Lucifer Morningstar. Gaiman's work in the Sandman allowed him to revamp other characters. the most significant of which was Lucifer. To keep a long story short, 3 things happened in the same comic book timeline, meaning continuity, in 3 different comic series. Gaiman was working on Sandman. Another legendary comic writer, John Ostrander, was revamping another DC legacy supernatural character, the Spectre, and Alan Moore was working on the character John Constantine in Hellblazer. DC Comics has always had Yahweh, the Abrahamic God, as the supreme being in their comic metaverse. However, they've also held that Yahweh is so far beyond comprehension that he's essentially he's the same being. Everyone worships him as the supreme being. He just manifests differently to all of them. These 3 comics, ultimately the vertical, operated in the same sort of space-time as I mentioned. Here's the thing. All 3 of them were using the character of the devil in some way. All 3 of those versions conflicted. So that when the writers of the 3 comics I mentioned, Sandman, Sandman, Hellblazer, and Constantine, when they found that out, to make a long story short, since they all knew each other, they worked together and came up with a way to resolve all the continuity. So they took advantage of the fact that in real-world history, that Lucifer Morningstar was not in fact originally a Christian concept. He was a figure in folklore, most particularly in Roman folklore and mythology, associated with the planet Venus. When Rome became Christianized, the early Christians reinterpreted the figure from Roman folklore as another name for the devil. So in comics, they separated them back out into separate beings. Lucifer became one of the first of the 2 most powerful angels created by Yahweh. Each of them was given 1 power by Yahweh. The other angel, by the way, was Michael. Lucifer was granted God's infinite and indomitable will, often referred to as the infinite will of God. This power basically allows him to do anything except one thing. Lucifer can shape anything that exists into anything else so long as it doesn't conflict with Yahweh's plan. But he can't create something from nothing. Lucifer cannot die unless he himself wills it. That's part of the infinite willpower. Michael is granted Yahweh's infinite power, which is the power to create infinite amounts of energy from nothing. This power, however, must be controlled by tremendous will. Since Michael doesn't have the infinite will of God, his ability to shape the power was dramatically less than Yahweh's or Lucifer's. Michael cannot die unless he chooses to suppress his power, since he will always renew him. The first rebellion in heaven was led by Satan, who became known as the first of the fallen. He was the original ruler of hell. We're talking in DC Comics terms. Lucifer rebelled later. By the time Lucifer had rebelled, it was only Lucifer, by the time Lucifer had rebelled, there were other angelic rebellions. The first of the fallen being Satan, then there was the second of the fallen, then the third of the fallen, who I believe was Asmodel. I'm trying to remember DC's naming of these beings. So eventually Lucifer rebelled, and Lucifer and Michael were engaging in an all-out fight that would have ended in destroyed reality because of how powerful they were. So Yahweh interceded, offered Lucifer a deal. Now, Lucifer's thing, the reason he was rebelling is because Lucifer did not want to be part of the plan. He wanted free will to make his own choices. And not free will like you or I think of free will. Lucifer wanted absolute free will, unfettered. Now, to say this is an immoral point of view, you can make that argument. But it's not like Lucifer wanted to run rampant and just wipe out trillions of beings. He basically wanted the ability to know his choices were totally his own. Yahweh interceded and offered Lucifer a deal. Total control of a place that was as free from his plan as possible. That was hell. Lucifer then became the ruler of hell, in the sense that God gave him the absolute control of it, but he never in any way interacted with the beings other than to keep it orderly, so beings like Satan started claiming to be him, since Lucifer didn't care about almost anything. Now, lastly about Lucifer, Gaiman modeled his physical appearance on David Bowie, particularly in the days when Bowie was trying to be as androgynous as possible. So the intent was to make Lucifer as androgynous as possible. So Lucifer being portrayed by a woman, or a man who looks female, or a woman who looks male, the androgyny, does not in any way conflict with what Gaiman did. That was by design from the original nature of the character. And Lucifer is neither male nor female. He's whatever he wants to be. He has the infinite willpower to shape reality. Now, following up the Sandman, Mike Carey wrote another legendary maxi series called Lucifer as a follow-up to the events that occurred in Sandman. And then finally, the last thing you need to know about the backstory here. There was a recent Fox TV show called Lucifer, which was based on the IP of the Lucifer comic series, but it was nothing like the characters that Gaiman defined and Carey ran with, other than being in name only. So if you're judging this Lucifer series, this Sandman series, and the character Lucifer in there and so forth by anything you saw in that Lucifer TV series. Don't. It's nothing like it. So now, what do we know about the series? Netflix is funding an adaptation. The adaptation has no connection to any other DC-related licensed projects. Filming is wrapped, but no release date is set. This suggests the show has a lot of special effects, which makes sense given it's about a place takes place mostly in the Dreaming. Neil Gaiman is one of the executive producers, and based on Neil's comment in his history, but the comments you can read in the article, which he's reasserting it. But if you know anything about Gaiman as a creator, he's exerting control over the franchise. Okay? And then the main cast, Dream is being played by Tom Sturridge. I haven't seen him in a lot, but I've seen him around. Lucifer is being played by Gwendolyn Christie. Remember I first talked about above. And Gaiman's Lucifer is and always has been androgynous. Gwendolyn Christie played Brienne of Tarth on Game of Thrones. Desire is being played by Mason Alexander Park. And here's another point of controversy. The fans were all over the net were up in arms about this, which was stupid. And believe me, I am the opposite of woke, okay? But try to saying that Neil Gaiman's work is somehow going to be woke. Neil Gaiman's work is beyond the concept of woke. You can't woke it, basically. Gaiman, Death is being played by Kirby Howell-Baptiste, who is a black actress. And as far as I know, she's a good young actress. Nothing complaint about her. Gaiman himself chose her. Gaiman stated that he is casting an actor to be perfect for who the character truly was, meaning internally the core metaphysical concept of the character. And the controversy arises from the fact that Death's appearance was as a sort of teenage white goth girl. And so you understand the mechanic there. In Death, the High Cost of Living, every century Death chooses to manifest as a human being, well, not just a human, but a mortal being who can experience death and kind of lives that life to experience the perspective of mortality. The last time we saw Death, Death had manifested as that white teenage goth girl. But remember I said before, these characters can manifest simultaneously throughout any infinite number of universes. So they're abstract manifestations. But so fans accused Gaiman of being an artist who gave no fucks about his own work, and Gaiman's response was particularly vitriolic. You can read it. It's Gaiman has spent decades fighting bad adaptations of his works, and he would never farm out his own works just for money. He's already rich, and he's a purist when it comes to this sort of stuff. I'll go over the rest of the cast when I do a preview review, like an episode 0 for the series when it gets closer. There's no point to going over it now because even though it's in post production, I want to see the whole cast list, and it'll be like an episode 0 of the review, so to speak. So my final thoughts, and not many at this point, because I'm enthused about this, probably more so than any comic book property that's been adapted recently, particularly with Gaiman in control of it. It's the number one reason that we as fans should be helpful on this. Fans are rightly concerned that any adaptation of the current environment is fraught with the danger of being subverted by Marxist deconstruction. I followed Gaiman's work over the years enough to know that he will not subvert his work to anyone else's will, for any reason. Anything that happens with Gaiman's work is what Gaiman wants it. We've been burned by adaptation, so my message to anyone listening is wait and see, or to quote Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. It's been those are my comments. Like if you like, dislike if you dislike, subscribe if you want to hear more from me. My name is Matt. This has been Unbearable 73. Have a nice day, and I am out of here.